Spirit Circle is about a shoemaker named Fawn. Fawn can see spirits. He lives in a theocratic village ruled by these fanatical and overzealous masked priest people. People like him are not treated very well in the village, but it's not really a big deal. As long as he keeps his mouth shut, he lives a pretty normal and decent life. Plus, the spirits are friendly to him and helps him out sometimes. One day, Fawn meets this girl. The two of them get along very well. One thing leads to another and they share 2 years together. Fawn's encounter with the girl was truly by happenstance, a true twist of the fate. For 2 years they knew peace and happiness, but then through the twist of the very same fate, the girl would be chosen to be the sacrifice for the ritual. Fawn is rightfully pissed off. On top of losing his lover, he knows that the ritual is fake because of him being able to communicate with spirits. So he makes a decision. On that fateful day, bringing along a weapon, he runs towards the top of the podium where the ritual will be held. He runs desperately and he fights off the guards ferociously, just in time to see the girl's still beating heart ripped out of her chest. In a fit of rage, he lunged directly at his mortal enemy and he wakes up. That is one of 7 stories or 7 lifetimes that Spirit Circle tells. In only one chapter, it literally feels like you've already lived a full lifetime. To be able to coherently tell a story, albeit a simple one, in technically 1.5 chapters is nothing less than brilliant. So you're probably wondering, why have you not heard of this manga before? And honestly, I don't really know. This manga is painfully underrated as one of the earliest inspirations for manga like Frieren or To Your Eternity or Movements of the Earth. The only reason that I even know about it is through some random Reddit thread from a long time ago. So to let even just one more person know about the brilliance of this manga, I'm here to talk about it. Yeah. So to sort of explain what Spirit Circle is, you know how in your typical shonen manga like Naruto or Dragon Ball, the main character faces these challenges, becomes stronger, defeats the bad guy, and happily ever after? It's crude simplification of all that, and there are way much more nuances to those stories, but all those shonen manga sort of follows the same traditional hero's journey. Not to say anything bad or condemn those shonen manga, but I bring this up to emphasize the unique way the story of Spirit Circle is presented. Spirit Circle, while following the hero's journey at times, is the complete deconstruction of it. Instead of focusing on the hero's journey, it primarily tells of the details and life of the hero. Sort of like how in Frieren, the show, we get to know Himo, the hero, by following Frieren, the character. Holy shit, why do I have to make these so goddamn confused? Spirit Circle is about what happens to the characters after the journey. What happens if the conflicts go unresolved? What happens if the main character never even achieves his goals in the first place? Those what ifs are essentially what Spirit Circle wants to answer through these stories of death and reincarnation. And answer them it does. After waking up, you are introduced to main character Futa Okia, along with his mortal enemy slash antagonist slash love interest, Koko Ishigami. And yes, this is as complicated as it sounds. She hates him because of something he did in his past life, and Futa doesn't remember anything about it. So Koko uses her Spirit Circle. Yes, haha, it's the title, Spirit Circle, to whack him in the head until he remembers all of his past lives, so that she can kill him after he remembers all of his past lives. You got all that? Good, because that really wasn't that important. What is important, however, is what happens after Fawn's death. According to Coco, after Fawn's singular act of rebellion, the villagers grew suspicious of the ritual. One thing led to another, and Coco, along with her entire family, ended up tortured and flayed to death in the name of their new Lord and Savior, Fawn. From the perspective of Futa, Fawn lived a very short life, but he did what he believed to be right and found meaning in his life. But to Coco, even though she bent the rules and even shown the girl kindness by letting her wear Fawn's shoes, Fawn still ended up being a harbinger of war and retribution, causing not only her family's death, but also plunged the entire village into chaos. The shifting of perspective is a very interesting aspect of the manga. Seeing Futa learning about his past life and him reacting to Coco's perspective shocks us just as much as it shocks Futa. This kind of resonance with the main character works better, or at least I think is better, compared to other stories because of how the whole reincarnation thing works. Stories about death and reincarnation has always been pretty special to storytelling. The very act of immersing yourself in a story is to live a different person's life. That's why most stories have main characters that have amnesia, like in Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or Final Fantasy 7 or 10, or even in Omori. Please go watch that video, I beg you. It's good, I swear, I promise, okay? Please. The main characters should start with a clean slate to learn with you and struggle with you, all so that we'll become attached to them and ultimately triumph with them. Well, the manga sort of does this 7, well, technically 6 times over, all with the same guy. Normally, this would probably not work that well in any other manga, because having 7 main characters would probably be very hard for the author to write and for the reader to follow. But the thing about Spirit Circle is that it is an extremely grounded story with so few characters that I can literally count them from memory. For the entirety of the manga, we only see 14 characters, which are constantly recycled through each of Futa's lives. So by the time a new person is introduced in Futa's life, you already know their personalities and connections. And through each life, we get a better glimpse into who these characters are. Besides just the characters, the author, Satoshi Mizukami, does a very good job of making these past lives feel like actually living a life. Each life feels distinct and original, all set in different periods in time and civilizations, all beginning with the personality of the simple and pure-hearted Okia Futa, but making different decisions shaped by their perspectives of their times. So here is my favorite of those 7 stories. The story of the night. Van was a brave and righteous knight. He wanted to slay the witch. At the first sight of the witch, the knight was filled with righteous fury. He knew this was his mortal enemy. Immediately, he thrusted his blade right through the witch. In the span of a few seconds, the story was over. The witch is dead, but not without retaliation. With the last of her breath, the witch branded the knight's cheek, cursing him to a lifetime of misfortune. Van's life continued. He was disowned by his noble family, and his dream of becoming a knight made impossible by the curse. So the broken and disheartened knight wandered for half a year until he settles by a house by the sea. He took fish from the water and rabbits from the woods. He would train with the blade by day and drink by night. He was broken and alone. His home grew still. Years later, after the passing of his father, Van's brother began to send assassins after him in fear of his rivalry for succession. It was then he would meet his friends, the mercenary, the priest, and the disciple. Together they would eat, drink, and train by day, and together they would fend off assassins by night. Months soon turned into years as they would drink, laugh, and trade stories with one another. They were broken, but at least they were not alone. The mercenary was a shameless rogue, moved only by coin with no pride to his name. He met his end at a tavern in a drunken brawl. The priest was a heretic and a glutton, speaking blasphemy as he would drink. He met his end falling into a well in a drunken stupor. The disciple was the only one responsible that did not partake in alcohol, but after his master's death, he returned to his homeland. And so the knight's home was once again still until, in another twist of fate, he was reunited with the girl from Fawn's life. Wait. Please, before you click off, I swear this isn't some weird I got reincarnated as your mom isekai type shit. This actually turns out very wholesome, I promise. Okay, I'm just gonna continue. After trying to do the responsible thing of trying to get a priest to take care of the baby, the priest sort of says some cryptic religion mumbo jumbo and shrugs him off, leaving the baby at the care of Van. Van would give the baby a name, Ray, the knight decided. Van would move to a farm in order to take better care of the baby. There, he would meet people that would show him kindness. He would drink less and would spin tales to impress his daughter. He would work by day, and by night he would be taking care of Ray. 3 years soon became 5. The brave and righteous knight soon became an occasionally drunk old man, and Ray a full-grown woman. So the father and daughter duo would set out to find Ray a suitable husband. They would travel across the land, through the plains and the woods, and would even end up visiting the knight's homeland. Near the end of the journey, the knight, due to old age, lost his footing and fell, striking his head on a rock. The knight does not end up surviving this. In his final moments, he thought to himself, he killed people without so much as a thought. He wasted his life through alcohol. His life was supposed to be cursed, yet how could he have known such happiness? That face right there is my exact reaction after finishing the story. It may have began as a knight slaying a witch, and maybe that's what it was just supposed to be, but to Futa and to us, it was just a story about the highs and lows of this one person's life. Mizukami succeeds in making these past lives feel like actual lives, from small details like how the knight spun tales to impress his daughter, or how the knight's friends died in such anticlimactic ways. Not a single event was remotely grand or glorified, yet the story was still able to touch readers in a way so few pieces of media can. The narration of the knight was bland, objective, and robotic even, yet having the narration recall or remark some random conversation with his friends or some jest he made with his daughter makes the story so much more personal. The way Mizukami makes us care about the mundane is very telling of what kind of story Spirit Circle is. And I think it is nothing short of brilliant, and if you disagree, then it's probably because I did a very bad job of telling the story. So you should check the manga out yourself. It's called Spirit Circle, if you haven't caught that. Besides just the main character, another thing that I find to be pretty interesting is a lot of the side characters were introduced under the impression that you already know who they are. That's because we already know who these characters are through the different versions of them, like how Coco and Rei were from the first story, or how the friends of Futa appears as the knight's friends. I really like how Mizukami plays with this idea, like this for instance. Futa's friends visits him when he's sick in the first panel. And then in the second panel, we see the knight's friends doing the same thing as Futa sort of slips into his past self's memories. There we see the knight's friends used to bring him vegetables and eggs when he was sick. By no means is it in any part necessary for the story to work, but it just sort of adds a little more depth to their relationships, which is just nice and wholesome to see. The manga had a lot of these crazy and complex ideas for a manga that was written when SAO was best anime. But what turned these great ideas into reality was the art. Not to disregard or belittle Mizukami's work, but the art style, while simplistic, is infinitely expressive. And you can really see this in the early chapters of the manga. In chapter 1, you see the main character, Futa, walking and thinking about his mundane daily high school problems, and then he walks past this random guy, takes one more step and opens his eyes to find that he has been transported to another world. And this is where you insert the isekai joke. But all jokes aside, look at this. I mean, sure, it may not be a Berserk or a One Piece, but this 2-page spread and the sequence leading up to it, while minimalistic, absolutely gets the job done. It succeeds in guiding our attention through the ordinary life of Futa and then overwhelming us with the magnanimity of the scene, capturing the alien and unfamiliar feel, yet somehow making the scene unfold like remembering a nostalgic or melancholic memory. I like these sequences where we see Futa minding his own business or lost in thought and then gets swept away to these fantastical and extraordinary situations. It almost feels like a kid daydreaming and getting lost in his own imagination. I think these sequences in the manga complement the theme of past lives and reincarnation very well, leading into the main theme of the manga. What is the meaning of life? For all 7 of Futa's lives, all of them has led to different answers. For Fawn, it was to forgive and to let go. For Van, it was to treasure your connections. As for Futa, he'll probably find that answer at the end of his life. And it is with all that in mind, we enter the final story of Spirit Circle. Okay, first of all, I do not think that I have given that much spoilers up until this point. Plus, you still haven't heard anything about the best arc of the manga, which is the 6th life, if I'm not mistaken. So if you're interested, there's still a lot more to the story than what I've mentioned. So yeah, there's your spoiler warning. The last of the 7 lives is set in a time so into the future that concepts like countries and electricity cease to exist. A time where civilization has advanced so much so that they look like they have regressed back into the Stone Age. During this time period, spirit energy is the main source of energy for civilization, and luckily or unluckily, our main character Fortuna is a prodigy at this. Fortuna is by all intents and purposes a genius, and because of his genius, he has a hard time communicating with most people other than his mentor, Ray, and his senior apprentice, Flambe. Yeah, that's how it's pronounced. Fortuna is egotistical and morally dubious, but he isn't an entirely bad guy. For the few friends that he does have, he truly does care for them. He is the type of guy that would create an entirely new being just for fun and then get punished later for ethical reasons. One day, Fortuna was met with a dilemma that would determine the fate of his life. His mentor has passed away. You see, Fortuna's idea of a genius is someone that is capable of doing anything. Up until this point, he is a genius that can easily create new life, yet he wasn't able to cure a measly illness to save his master. If he was as competent as he thought he was, then the responsibility of his master's death falls entirely on his shoulders. But if it wasn't his fault, then it would mean that he was no genius at all. This dilemma changed him and, in a way, fueled him. So, when the same illness came for one of his friends, East, he was more than ready for the challenge. I think this would be a pretty good time to introduce Fortuna's friends. First, we have East, the guy Futa walked past by during the earlier part. He is kind and gentle, and he is Fortuna's only friend that is human and not a child. The other is Rune. She is an artificial spirit created by Fortuna. She is most of the time an energetic and happy girl. And then we have Coco, East's adoptive daughter. Much like Fortuna, she is a talented young girl that can understand most of Fortuna's scientific jargon. And yes, she is the same Coco as all the other Cocos. Together they lived, had fun, and laughed with each other. But soon tragedy struck. With all that in mind, we enter the final stage of this arc. Fortuna creates the Spirit Circle, an energy-absorbing device that can practically do everything that its user want. You can sort of think of it as the holy grail from Fate. It can practically grant any wish, but it just needs a large amount of energy to do so. So in order to charge the Spirit Circle, Fortuna did some pretty bad things. And when I mean bad, he blew up 2 whole cities with the people inside. After that, he used the Spirit Circle and made East into a living soul. He can't touch, can't eat, or interact in any way physically with the human world. Fortuna basically created the ultimate cure to death. Coco is reasonably horrified by the atrocities that were committed by Fortuna, so she asks him a question. What do you think a life is? And Fortuna answers, an energy source for biological activity. At this point, Coco believes that Fortuna is too far gone, certainly far too inhumane to reason with, so Coco, along with East, runs away from Fortuna. So the 4 of them goes their separate ways. After parting ways, Fortuna loses everything, chaining him down to the physical world. He turns to his studies, conducts experiments on the dead, reanimating them, and uses them to massacre an entire city just so he can leisure its library. Fortuna's tyranny goes on for years until one day Coco comes back to confront her former friend. Tensions were high. Fortuna, with his entire army of undead staring down at Coco. But I'm not really gonna talk about the final duel between them because one, it's sort of the same thing as the past 2 lives that I talked about, and 2, because I think the duel doesn't really mean that much to the story. So instead, let me tell you about something else. When all this city conquering was happening, Rune was sort of just hanging around Fortuna. Her being a spirit makes her unaware of the severity of Fortuna's crimes, and even if she does know of it, she sort of can't really do much about it. She can't physically stop him, nor can she persuade him. So before the final duel, Fortuna promises Rune that he'll make Rune human with the spirit circle and all. And Rune sort of thinks about it a little. Fortuna asks Rune what she wants to do once she's human again, and I think her answer is very profound. Rune answers, I wanted to lift Coco when she was little. I wanted to try East bread. I wanted to help you more. You can still do all those things, Fortuna says, and Rune replies saying she can't because all those moments have already passed. And this leads back to the question, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be human? All Rune wanted was to hold the people dear to her, to eat food made by her friends, and to help the people she cares for. But she can't because those moments are just simply gone. That is what it means to be alive. To be human is to be ephemeral, to enjoy and appreciate the moment. That to me is what Spirit Circle is about. All the mundane and boring moments, all the unexpected encounters, all of that is ultimately what makes life fun. And I think that's a very beautiful message. If you think so too, then please go watch my Omori video. Like, it's good. Thank you.